There you go.
Thank you. All right, that was
Starting
right.
now.
Starting now, let's go. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tracy Turner. I am on the board of Conscious Capitalism for Central Maryland, and I also am campus director at 1776 in North Bethesda at our Green Court campus. And I wanted to welcome you to our Nourishing Office Culture in a Virtual World conversation. It's something that I'm really interested in, having worked with a lot of different organizations over the years. And I have a couple of dear friends in this webinar today who are masters at conscious culture and engaging their employees and their vendors and the customers. And so before we get started with the program, first of all, I want to thank our sponsors. We'd like to thank SOBAR, the Wendy Slaughter team, and Intelligenesis. And 1776 is a strategic sponsor. They've been plugging it in for almost all of our programs since the lockdown started. So thank you to all of you for supporting today's program. Now I'd like to turn it over to Wendy Mumaw, who is, well, she's got some details to share with you today. Wendy, it's all yours.
Greetings, everyone. It's really great to see you here. I'm the former president of the board of Conscious Capitalism of Central Maryland. We just elected a new board. So I'm excited to be here to be a part of this conscious culture opportunity. I will share a little bit about the organization. Conscious Capitalism itself is built on 4 pillars: conscious leadership, conscious culture, higher purpose, and stakeholder orientation. And so today we're going to be exploring conscious culture. I'm super excited to be in the room with Ebony Adams-Monk, who's the new president of Conscious Capitalism of Central Maryland. Yay, so excited. Sandy Young is our secretary. She's the new executive of the board also. Liz Richardson, who is the COO of Indigo Inc., is our new vice president. And Kevin Howard is our treasurer. And we're proud to have Brian Akers, who's our board member at large, but who's leading up our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And that's where I'm going to return to after I step down from the board. So we're super excited to figure out ways that we can bake in racial equity into organizations from the inside out. So I'm going to go ahead and have Tanya, who is the head of the membership committee, share a bit more about the organization.
Thanks, Wendy. So I'm Tanya Rapaz. I'm a certified financial planner with Arthur Stein Financial. I'm also on the board of Conscious Capitalism of Central Maryland. And as she said, I chair the membership and the governance committees for Conscious Capitalism. And so I'd like to invite all of you here today to learn more about our organization. I'm going to throw the link to our website into the chat so you could learn more about becoming a member. Becoming a member comes with a lot of great benefits. You get a listing on our page to help you connect with other conscious capitalists and find out who else is doing this work, and allows you to promote your business. You also get discounts on future events. This past summer, we had a series exploring the pillars of conscious capitalism. The YouTube channel has that content, and we are looking to add even more content that people can access as you continue to explore this work. I'd also like to let you know that we have another event coming up on November 10th. This time it's a conscious coffee, so it's in the morning, it's at 8 o'clock. Our featured speaker is going to be a professor from Loyola who has started a program in sustainability management business, and his name is Dr. Hung Bien Din, and the name of the topic is going to be sustainability management from awareness to business solutions. So I hope you all will join us.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Wendy, so much. We appreciate your service to the organization. Outgoing Mumaw, we're gonna miss you, honey, but I know Ebony will take the charge and lead us forward as we move forward. Now I'd love to introduce our panelists to you. I will be moderating the program today, but we've got Ebony Adams-Monk and Ashley Eggleston, and where did Kimberly go? Kimberly Prescott with Prescott HR. We'll start with Ebony. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and the company that you represent today?
Sure. Thanks, Tracy. And thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon for our Conscious Cocktails event. Ebony Adams Monk, I am here representing in maybe 3 capacities. I was going to say 2, but maybe it's 3. I am the Director of Marketing for Advanced Refining Technologies, which is a joint venture between Chevron and Columbia-based W.R. Grace. W.R. Grace is a large employer here in the Columbia area. Our headquarters are here. We have 3,700 employees, $2 billion global specialty chemical company providing catalysts and chemicals into the transportation fuels, plastics, as well as paint, beer, and some other industries. So we do a lot. And I'm also here in my capacity as the new president of Conscious Capitalism of Central Maryland. I think that's the first time I've said that. And then also I'm here because I'm passionate about culture. It was a great opportunity to talk about conscious culture just a few months ago. And so those are my 3 reasons why I'm here. And I really love exploring the parallels between culture outside of work, as well as culture inside the workplace. So I'm also a mom of 2 teenagers, and I'm glad to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Ebony. We're so happy to have you join the panel. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ashley Eggleston. She will be representing Intelligenesis today. Ashley, tell us a little bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. So a little bit about me. I've been supporting the intelligence community for over 13 years. Primarily, my background is in recruiting and staffing. I would say that's really kind of my bread and butter. But I have held roles as like program management. I've done operations management. And newly, I have a new, I guess, position where I oversee marketing now, which I think actually came out of the pandemic. We had a very small marketing footprint, but it's kind of boomed since COVID's happened. And I'll go a little bit more into that as we go further in the panel. But another thing about me, I'm a mom of 3, since we're bringing up kids, 3 daughters, so I'm busy. And as far as the company, Intelligenesis, we've been around for 13 years. We're woman owned. Our CEO is Angie Leinert. She's listening in. And we are also veteran owned. So about 70% of our company is veterans. We are currently at about over 140 employees right now. For the most part, our customers are with the DoD and intelligence community. So we do a lot of cybersecurity, data science, analytics, those types of services. And we have our headquarters is in Maryland, but we now have employees in the extended enterprise. So we have people in Colorado, Hawaii, Georgia, Texas. So we're definitely branching out and excited about that.
Great. Angie Leinert, let me know when you're hiring in Hawaii. Just throwing that out there. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us today. And last but not least, Mrs. Prescott, welcome to the panel. Tell us a little bit about Prescott HR, and what brings you here today.
Yeah, you were probably thinking HR and cocktails, because that's probably what you think about, first. So I am Kimberly Prescott. I am the founder and president of Prescott HR. We are an outsourced human resources consulting firm. We specialize in aligning business strategy with your people strategy. So a lot of people think about HR, they think recruitment. That is not what we do. We do everything after you hire your employee, as well as making sure that you are taking care of your employees, and that ultimately your culture and the employee experience aligns with your business strategy. And I'm very active in the community. I'm not a part of Conscious Capitalism, and now I feel a little left out. So we'll have to fix that. I know we'll have to fix that.
Not yet. Not yet.
I know. But I am very involved in the community, and I do truly appreciate making sure that we are being responsible in our community. So I'm currently the vice chair of the Community Foundation of Howard County. And I also sit on the board of leadership Howard County, and Brian Akers was my classmate.
Wow.
So yes, so thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Kimberly, so much. Thank you all panelists for joining us, sponsors and participants here. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to frame out conscious culture, and Ebony's going to help us do that. But because of the pandemic, so much has changed within our normal business routines as business owners and employees. Remote work is the bulk of it. And our question today is looking at what a positive business culture is, what it looks like today and post-pandemic. So we're going to talk through those 3 different points. And I'd like to start with Ebony giving us a little background, which she does so beautifully, on why a conscious culture is so important in a business.
Absolutely. So corporate culture, culture in general, but corporate culture specifically, encompasses how we do what we do. It's about how we get results, how we communicate with each other, how we show up in the communities that we are part of. And it encompasses the values, our beliefs, our practices. It's the things that we do in our companies that send signals to the people who interact with our companies about who we really are. One of the interesting things about the importance of culture, and I can look at this on so many different levels. WR Grace is a company that has a very high performance culture, and so we always talk about driving for higher revenues, higher profits. But the other thing that's really important about culture is it's also about engagement in the community and attracting more capable employees. So, we've talked many times about how much culture is a driving factor in determining how successful an organization can be, and also how employees, high talented employees, are drawn to a particular company because of not only what they stand for, but also how they do business, what their culture is. And then finally, the overall well-being and satisfaction for employees that are working inside of an organization makes corporate culture so important. What else can I say about that?
How about the customer experience, Ebony? I know that that's impacted as well.
Yeah, so it's, the way I like to think about culture and the purpose of culture is it's really about uniting people. It's about relationships and how people relate with one another in an organization. So if you think about that from the customer side, and you almost have to start with the employees. We always say, our employees are our secret sauce, right? Nothing happens without the employees, and we're the ones who convey our culture, not only within our organization, but outside of the organization. We're the first representative. So I'm in marketing. I work with our sales teams and training them and going out with them to meet with customers. And how we show up at events and at meetings, it represents our company and what we stand for and our culture and how we do things. So even something as simple as being an employee and coming into a meeting with an agenda, right? And maybe at the beginning of that agenda, we talk about safety and making sure to let people know, hey, if something happens, if an alarm goes off while we're meeting, we want everyone to be safe. And so we will stand up. We're not going to rush. And we're going to walk together, right? Our hosts are going to escort us to a safe place, right? Having that discussion at the beginning of a meeting that may be about a problem a customer is having or a new product that they want from us signals to the customers that we are concerned about their well-being as people. And it represents how we tend to our customer relationships with that same amount of care, if you will. Our customers come to desire I would say a customized yet uniform experience. They know that as a company, we're going to address their issues and situations uniquely because they are unique. We're not doing a cookie cutter solution for everyone who comes to us. At the same time, they also want to know that we are going to tend to them in a very with a lot of with empathy, right? Mm-hmm. Empathy for this situation. It's interesting because I work for a technical company. We're all engineers. Most of us are, and our customers are engineers. They're the engineers who are, in my case, running operating units in refineries. But even with that, it becomes very clear where our culture is about safety and high results and being a service to the customer, wanting to do anything possible to make sure that customer is happy. And that becomes part of our secret sauce, honestly. People know what to expect when one of our tech service engineers goes out into the unit. They know what to expect because it's Grace. It has that Grace name on it. And that's the reputation that we've driven.
And that's your credibility right there. It reminds me of unconsciously, a lot of business owners do have awesome corporate culture, and it's reflected in their leadership and then with their employees, and then in turn to their customers. And many years ago, I used to work, this is one of my first jobs, I worked at ServPro, and my job was to answer the phone, and here's my phone. You had to say, "It's a great day at ServPro, how may I help you?" And like the first week, corporate was calling me up and saying, "We can't hear you smiling when you say that." That was the extent of their corporate culture. So every time I see a ServPro truck, I think it's a great day at ServPro.
Yeah.
But I'd like to turn it over to Ashley from the point of view of Intelligenesis. You all do this well, and we're framing out the conversation right now. Historically, what kind of tactics and programs have you used to promote corporate culture, to engage your customer base, keep your employees happy, all of those things that Ebony touched on?
Yes, I think, traditionally, we've always put our employees first. That's really what Angie has instilled in all of us. So we have I think the main thing that we were doing previously was a lot of in-person, events that, people would talk about for a very long time. One event that we did that people still talk about that happened years ago was we took the entire company to Mexico. Not just the employee themselves, we also had a +1 that they could bring, a spouse or a friend or whatever. And I don't know if you guys know about this industry, but that's very hard to get the agency to approve something like that. So we fought for it, and and that was a event that people are going to talk about. They remember, they got to really see and see Angie and leadership kind of in a different environment, and I think that kind of pulled us together. We also do our holiday party, which is pretty big, where we have it at Turf Valley, and we have hotels, and we fly up the other employees that are in our other locations to make sure that they feel involved, because they don't see us on a day-to-day basis. So really incorporating things like that is something that we've been doing as well. And also with our quarterly all hands, we have an all hands meeting every quarter that we talk to the employees. We tell them what's going on with the company. We ask if they have feedback. I mean, we're really, pretty transparent about what's going on, good or bad, right? Good or bad. We explain losses, maybe in the contracts that we've had, wins, what we're working on. So we were doing that also quarterly. We have virtual breakfast. Not virtual breakfast, that's what we're doing now, but we had in-person breakfast where, Angie and management would come out to their sites and talk to them. And they could, address any concerns or things that they were happy about. So we've had that. We have leadership retreats where we really focus on the culture. That's a big part of our meeting that we have at the end of the year. We talk about the benefits and how we can improve those to make sure that it's not just good for the employees, it's good for the families that they have. Insurances, we don't increase health costs, even though it costs us more to improve our health insurance. More leave, because we understand work-life balance is important. So those are some of the things that we were doing prior to the pandemic that, we're going to continue to do, and I can talk about that later, but that's some of the things that we've been doing over the years.
Yeah, it's evident, and I so much look forward to the LinkedIn posts to see Angie Leinert in a swimsuit on a surfboard in Mexico. Like that was
was she really on a surfboard?
You know,
Yeah,
double dare you next time. One of the topics that Kimberly alluded to that I did want to bring back into the conversation is your community engagement. And that is exterior to, your integral corporate culture, but how you support the community. It's an optic, of course, but I know, Kimberly, you're super involved in the community and you're a business of one. Is that right? It's just you and
No, there's 6 of us.
Oh, never mind. Well,
That's okay.
I do know you have an active presence in the community. If you'd like to touch on that. Sorry for the curveball.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's very important, and it's important to me that the members of my team also are involved. So whether it is the local Human Resources Society, so Howard County has a Human Resources Society. I used to be the president of that. Just really being involved, giving back to the community. Honestly, I can't even list all the things that I'm doing, but what I will say is that one of the pieces that I think is important is not just doing what's right inside your organization, but also making sure that you are giving back and building a community that you're proud to be in. I think that many of us, particularly, I could speak to Howard County. I know that we have people who are in other places, but in Howard County, it's a place that we're proud to be, and I'm sure that other people are proud of where they are, but it's just a place where you're like, I feel a responsibility to continue to make this a great place to work and live and play.
Great. And as we move through the conversation, if any of you here today have some great ideas to share that may not be familiar to us that you're doing within your community or within your own corporate culture, put that in the chat and we'll explore that at the end of the conversation.
Tracy, there was a great question from Wendy Muma in the chat. What is one piece of advice you would give to a startup business in the process of creating culture? Anyone?
I think it depends on the size of the organization. Join Conscious Capitalism. That would be your first step. How about that?
So let me weigh in and then I can turn it over to others. One of the things that I would say is to get very clear about your own personal purpose. Why are you starting a company? What is it about? What's its mission? Who are you serving and why? Right? Developing a clear sense of purpose and mission and value is critical in order to establish a culture. See, culture can just happen on its own and without any direction or guidance or nurturing, it will happen on its own. And if you want to be intentional about culture, once you get clear about the purpose and the mission and the values, then you can build process and customer and the kinds of employees you want to give life to bring those things to life. But for me, you always have to start with purpose.
Right. That's
Yeah,
great.
and I'll agree with that. And if I can just add something, I definitely agree with what Ebony said. I mean, because a culture is the personality of your organization. So it can be something that you create intentionally, or it can be something that people just sense as a part of their experience. And I think it's also important as leaders, as a part of, defining what the culture is. It's important to understand that the culture is not what you say it is. It is the experience that people have. It's how people actually experience it. So it's important to understand that you can say this is our culture, but if that's not the experience people are having, that's not the culture.
Perfect. Thank you, Kimberly. This is a good opportunity to move into the second part of our conversation. During pandemic times, and Kimberly, I'm going to hop back to you. All the organizations I've ever worked in, HR was super important in establishing culture. and monitoring, company habits and regulations, and how do you see the pandemic has impacted standard HR relations? Has it, especially with, regard to remote work and the different challenges that families have, some, with small children at home, and they're doing the remote learning as well. And are there recommendations you can give these business owners about, flexibilities and maybe adjustments they can make?
Yes. So one thing that I'll also say is, in a lot of organizations, HR is looked at as kind of the place where the policies get created, and it's the graveyard for people's careers. Whatever. However, it's my philosophy that HR is not the police. We help to facilitate the vision of the leadership. We provide advice and counsel around some of the things that they should consider and the impact of the decisions. So I do want to say that as the backdrop of really what my philosophy of the role that HR plays in the organization. And with that in mind, as we look at how people have shifted into the remote world, it's been interesting because it wasn't a thoughtful transition for many of us. There were some organizations that already had things in place. For many of us, it was like, shut the doors, batten down the hatches, we're home tomorrow, right? And so then we had to create really what it is that we needed. And some of it is dictated to us by regulations. Some of it is, what is our culture and what is the message that we want to send to people, and how do we want people to walk away feeling at the end of this? And with that in mind, we have people who are home with children. Regulations say they only need to get 12 weeks of pay. Well, the school year is longer than that. And so people are going to be gone longer, and people are going to need flexibility longer. So part of the conversation around the culture that you want to create is, how do we create that flexibility? Are we just going to say 12 weeks, you're done? Or are we going to say, let's find a way to accommodate? Let's identify some ways that we can support parents. I recently read an article, I believe it was in the Baltimore Sun, about learning pods, and that there were parents who had their children in learning pods. And so there's a group of parents that agree to a set of rules so that their children can be around each other, and they bring in either a college student or a teacher that didn't decide not to go back to work, or another parent, to facilitate the learning for those children during the day so that the parents can work. And so identifying resources for your employees and creating some flexibility. Does it matter if I'm at my computer all day? Am I going to sit here and look at your Skype and see if it's yellow? I personally don't care if it's inactive or if it's yellow, because I don't know what you're doing at that time. I think we need to just think about, what are the deliverables, and are they getting the things done? Mm-hmm. And really creating a culture of flexibility and letting people know that it's okay. It's okay if you need to do this during this block of time, and being clear about your expectations, being clear and saying, okay, this is when this is due, but I'm not going to manage you and micromanage you throughout the day to see if you are online for 8 hours. I don't think that that's a realistic expectation. And what it does is, it almost says to your employees that you don't have any other way to measure their success other than FaceTime. Right. I came to work, I was here all day, so I'm productive, right? I'm online all day, my light's green all day, I'm productive. That is wrong. That's not how we measure productivity, and it's not how we create a culture of individuals feeling like entrepreneurs, feeling like they own their piece of the business, and feeling like they get to have some say in how the work gets done.
Wow, very well said. Thank you for that, Kimberly. And you are not the police, in my opinion. I know there are some organizations where HR is, the dreaded HR, but you bring a really bright perspective to it. Actually, I'm coming back to you because we're talking about the now, and Kimberly brought up some great points about flexibility from home, and the pods for the kids, and what kind of different structures have you changed within IntelliGenesis? What have you brought in that's new that worked really well?
Yeah, so for us, it's a little bit different just because with our company, we have about 20 or so individuals that are in the office spaces, so corporate, and then the rest of our employees are on contract, and they work in like a classified space. So I have to probably hit this from two different areas. But as far as what we did, same thing as what Kimberly said. It was almost like as soon as the pandemic hit, it was like shut the doors, go home, grab your computers, and it's like kind of wait until we come back and see what's going on. What we did at first was we set up meetings as soon as possible. And we started off with Microsoft Teams. That's worked well for us. Microsoft Teams has the chat capability, the videos, so we can really collaborate as a team. And rather that's, as a full company, or if we need to collaborate in smaller groups. So that was one of the first things that we kicked off, made sure everybody had access to Microsoft Teams. Secondly, what we did is we really started off with increasing our leadership meetings. We went from having those biweekly to having them daily. And what we were doing in those daily meetings is collaborating on how we can benefit the employees during this time, because we had some severe challenges with the government. They were sent home, and how are we going to bridge that gap? There was people that we had to address or adjust our PTO structure right away, because we're trying to figure out how we can accommodate to still pay people when they essentially were not working. So that was some of the things that we were doing. We were looking at things at a 30-day, every 30 days, because things were changing. We immediately executed changing our newsletters. That was a way that we were communicating. We originally were sending those out monthly, and then we went straight to sending those weekly. Within those newsletters, we were providing guidance on what the company was doing, how we were going to help them. We also were doing training once a week. So we kicked off internal training. We partnered with CompTIA, and we started, getting courses together for people that were out of work. They could do Security Plus and Network Plus and CEH. And then we had our own training that our SMEs created, that we were doing that multiple times a week to at least keep them engaged. Additionally, we were also doing we've done virtual karaoke nights, virtual game nights. We were also doing, I'm trying to think if there was one more other thing that we were doing. It'll come back to me. But we were doing that once a week. Angie also was doing podcasts. So we were using Blue Button, which is similar to like a Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where she would talk directly to the company about what was going on, good or bad, whatever policies the government was bringing out. We were explaining that, and then we would follow up with the managers, saying that basically following that same structure. Once she, set the tone, and the program managers were then following up with emails and calls to make sure that the employees were okay, if they had questions about daycare and going back to work. So we were working hand in hand on those things. And I think that people really appreciated that. We also had virtual yoga sessions that we were having for people that they could still, exercise, those types of things. We've even kicked off, we had a drive-in movie. So once we could go back to a little bit of coming out, right? At first we were not able to leave at all. And then we kind of were able to do things with social distancing. We had a drive-in movie that we held in our parking lot. So we watched Back to the Future. We had individually packed food and things for the kids to have, so we could still be together, but not necessarily be close. We had masks and hand sanitizers that we were handing out to the employees. So for us, I think, it really made us have to step it up a notch, even though we felt like we were pretty good, but it forced us to step it up a notch. And now it's actually set the tone for how I think we're going to move forward.
That's very well said. There's so much that you brought up that I want to address. And lastly, what you said about your team, I felt like this pandemic has brought my team closer together. And it could be, you're looking at someone's living room and you see a cat running over their head, and, you find different ways to connect virtually since you can't do that in person. But when you mentioned the cadence of the emails and the blogs and the posts, right off the bat, 1776 was on a daily cadence, and it was impossible to sustain. Naturally, no one can do that. And hopefully everybody was able to step back a little bit. We have, of course, once that we made sure that our member companies and our vendors and anybody else, partnerships were well taken care of and well apprised of what we were doing moving forward. But we mentioned some really cool technology that I think was a very interesting learning curve for a lot of companies during the pandemic. And the technology was super important because it brought us all together. But there's a learning curve in there. And I don't know if you remember Saturday Night Live had done a skit about one of the moms trying to get in there and they're saying, like, oh my God, how do you turn it on kind of thing. Honestly, I was guilty of that because I've never worked remotely and hadn't had a virtual presence at all. And so Ebony's smiling. I'm wondering, like, for example, at W.R. Grace, with the different, types of operations that you have, was there a learning curve? Did you find that technology was helpful, or did you have to make some changes?
Technology is helpful. We have, because we're a global company and we are meeting with people, I mean, in any given day, I can be meeting with my team in Singapore as well as my team in Dubai. So we're already accustomed to the, Microsoft Teams. We actually shifted providers to Microsoft Teams because it's a little bit easier, a little bit more flexible to use, especially on a continuous basis. Most of us here in the Columbia office, as well as most of the offices, most people already had laptops. One of the things that I'm proud of about Grace is, I would say as early as January, early February, they were already monitoring events around COVID. And so they were already making arrangements for people that could work from home to get laptops and to get set up. And they started those communications very early. So I think we were probably one of the first companies to work from home. Everyone works from home. The other thing I'll mention is that we also travel a lot. And no matter where our employees were in the world, there were very clear guidance and directions around who could travel and who couldn't travel. And most people could not travel because the company wanted to make sure that every employee was safe. And it went to the point where, when I don't know that we really micromanage a lot, but for this particular policy, anyone who wanted to travel into a region outside of, the way the policy was set up, had to get approval from someone from our executive board, from our executive team, that level. That's how serious and committed the company was. I wanted to add something, just in thinking about how the company shifted to this virtual work, and communication was critical during this time. And we have 4,000 employees. And it's important to make sure that everyone is aligned and representing what the company wants us to do. And those communications were communicated by people like me who have teams of people that I'm leading, but also from our CEO. He did videos that he created, video calls, so that people could hear what he had to say about our policies. And we did some similar things like the flexible work schedules and virtual exercise classes. But one of the things that I think is really important for a company of our size that's really very results driven is that in some ways, although we're still very busy, in some ways we've all paused and we're more empathetic. I spend a lot of time checking in with the people on my team, and not just asking about how they're doing, because it's the kind of question we just ask all the time, right? We get on a call and say, hi, how are you? And everybody says, oh, I'm good. And we just move on. But we actually spend real time asking, how are your children, right? How is your setup, your work setup? Is it ergonomic? How are you adjusting to the fact that your children are in school all day? And I know that you had 8 meetings scheduled today, right? And I think that's really important that we're actually taking the time. Can be in this frenzy to get things done, but it's also important to take the time to have real human contact.
And that's such a great point. And you know, for the group, that is not a one-time check-in. You need to continue that cadence of checking in, because for whatever reason, an employee may feel unsupported or isolated, and that can happen next week when last week it was fine.
That's
So
right.
that's a great point that you brought up about that.
Tracy, I wonder if any of the panelists here have found that they're doing more as a group to give back. Because I know, like, our company, like, we just wanted to do something. Like, what could we do? And, you know, when it first started, we started collecting cotton fabric for a group that was making masks for people who couldn't afford them and for first responders. So, like, that can obviously contribute to culture when you do something together. Did you have anything like that, Ashley?
Anya, please jump in.
Yes, we did. We had a gentleman in our company that realized that he could make masks. So he helped us not only make masks for the company originally, but then we were also giving them out to people within the community, mostly Howard County and some of the disabled veterans. So we were doing that. We also donated to all the food banks so we donated to Maryland, Georgia, and Texas. We would have done Hawaii, but that's kind of hard to to get to. We had people in those other locations at the time, so we did some of that. But we also are always kind of giving back. We've given laptops to students in Baltimore City. We also did, and this might be a little bit different, but we also did a virtual webinar for separating military. So we did an hour-long webinar, you know, to explaining to them, you know, what they need to get acclimated to civilian world, and we did some of that stuff. So I would say yes, it has pushed us to do more stuff and to just continue, I would say.
Anyone else?
That, and I would also say we did some things as well. We were working with the Better Business Bureau of Greater Maryland, and we did some pro bono consulting work. So for some smaller businesses that just didn't know answers, didn't know what to do. I mean, I had a store from Arundel Mills that were like, Arundel Mills said, I cannot go back after 12 o'clock today. I don't know what to do. So I spent an hour with this person pro bono, just helping them to understand what they needed to do, what documents and forms they needed to give to their employees. And how to move forward with their process. And so there were several. And thanks to Miss Wendy Baird, I had an awesome resource page on my website where I was able to provide some pro bono resources to businesses, template letters, some various things that smaller businesses just don't have access to because they don't have an HR department.
Wow. It's 1776. My campus is in North Bethesda, and we have been promoting probably since July, when the campus opened back up, like, you come in and spend a day at no charge. We just launched a one complimentary week of access to the campus, and a deeply discounted membership should you choose to join. And I mean, that's all we can do, really. We're a service provider. We don't have a product, but I've got people here today that just needed a third space and got tired of the cat walking on the keyboard. And they pop in for a couple of hours so they can make a phone call without fighting over who gets the next board game piece, kind of thing. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, at Grace, we have a whole slate of organizations that we donate to, including United Way and some local organizations, as well as, and I say local, but I mean local here, but also we're in other places where we have offices around the United States and around the world too. One of the things, there are two things that really stand out. And one is that many times it's our employees who are leading and guiding some of the efforts that we make in the community. So earlier in the year, so actually just as the pandemic was, like late February, I identified the National Society of Black Engineers, the junior chapter here in Howard County, was sponsoring a leadership event for students. The event was held at Wild Lake High School. and they needed sponsors and they wanted people to come in and participate. My company wasn't aware of that, but I was. So I brought it to them, and the whole organization got behind that, and I got support from our HR team. And so I think it very much speaks to the culture that we're listening to employees. The other thing is, and I mentioned this when we were preparing for this panel, is that related to COVID, but just there's COVID going on, remember that. But then there are also other things that are happening as well, crisis situations, and the recent hurricanes in Louisiana. Hurricane Laura was a devastating hurricane, particularly in the city of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and some of the parishes around there. We actually have a manufacturing facility, a manufacturing plant in Lake Charles. Most of our employees live in Lake Charles, and many of them lost their homes. They lost everything. And my company, again, put people up in hotels, made sure that their families were safe, and then started a huge project to put trailers on the site to make sure that the employees would have some place to go that was safe with their families, arranged for food and commissary for everyone, as well as a place for them to get supplies. And also opened up our Grace Foundation to allow employees to donate, and our company would match dollar for dollar and probably more, right? And so at this point, it's $100,000 plus that's been raised. And so there are, in the midst of a pandemic, one of the things that I always keep in mind is that it doesn't negate any of the other personal community challenges that are taking place. And it's important that as businesses and organizations that we remain conscious of that and diligent.
That's a wonderful story, Ebony. Thank you. We're mindful of the time, less than 10 minutes left as we move into the end of our conversation. Wendy's got some great contributions from the chat. You're welcome to unmute yourself as we explore the topic of what we can continue to do to support businesses as a corporate culture, a conscious culture during this time, and maybe post-pandemic, fingers crossed, what we'd like to keep working, what worked, what didn't, those kinds of things. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Wendy Baird.
Oh yeah, Danielle had a great question. Danielle, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the panel?
Sure. Thank you for everything that's been shared thus far. Something that is coming to mind for me, so I work in the area of racial equity, and I am wondering how that has played in, along with COVID, to your strategies this year around culture. We've been hit with, and I wasn't even thinking about the natural disasters. There have been so many issues that have come up this year that potentially could impact culture, that I'm just curious how you've been addressing it in general, but then also virtually.
Anyone want to jump in?
I can start. As you can imagine, with 4,000 employees, this issue, having so many diverse people in the organization, it's a huge issue for us. I'll tell you, one of the first things is around the time of the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and some of the other events that have happened after that, with protests and just the general discussion around this topic, I found it important to take care of myself and to encourage other people to do the same, and also to communicate to my company that that is what I was doing. So I had to take a mental health day. I just had to. The other thing is, at my level, I have a responsibility to communicate honestly to my company about this issue and how it impacts people in my community and other people that have been communicating with me, and to communicate my ideas around where we have opportunities to do better as a company. And so I did that. As a company, what I find very interesting is that in the middle of pandemic and virtual work and everything else that's going on, we had started to kick off our D&I journey late last year, and it kicked into high gear. And it made that journey, I think, even more applicable and more important. It forced a lot of discussions between people that perhaps were not having discussions around race and bias in the workplace.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll say that, you know, my clients definitely had a lot of questions about it. And to Ebony's point, I wanted to make sure that my clients, understood that there were some employees that needed to take a break, that they were not okay. You know, I was myself in a meeting where I had to say, I'm not okay, right? And so making sure that they're understanding that. And the other thing that I think is important is just communication, making sure that people felt that there was a safe space to be able to say, I'm not okay, to be able to say, here are some challenges that I'm having or that I'm seeing. Here are some things I would like for us to do, and making sure that they felt safe having those conversations. And part of that started with communication, making sure that they had some type of statement. Now, you didn't have to necessarily take a position one way or the other if that wasn't the culture of your organization at that time, but you want to make sure that you have credibility in whatever you're saying. But at the same time, making sure that you said something. So that was something that I felt was very important, is creating that safe space and having some type of communication with your team to let them know that you were aware and that you were acknowledging if you weren't able to definitively say, we take this particular position.
Nice. Ashley, do you have anything to add to that DEI conversation that Danielle brought up?
I think that just to kind of piggyback what Kimberly said, I think we kind of took the same stance of, you know, this is a tough one. So we had a conversation with our employees that basically to let them know that they could, you know, that they could talk to us. So that there's an open door policy. If you need time, if you have questions, you know, leadership is there. If it's not, you know, it doesn't even have to be Angie herself. It can be whoever you kind of feel comfortable talking to. And that we told them that if there's anything that we can help with, you know, for us, we have a certain process for how we, with being a smaller company, right, we have to really be careful how much money we spend for certain groups and different things like that. But we offered that if you have something that you wanted us to support, to let us know, and then we can kind of, you know, see if that's something that we can do. So we kind of left it as, like I said, open door policy. Like Kimberly said, let it know that it's a safe space. You can come and talk to us, and just being more flexible overall, I believe is what we try to do.
Nice. Great.
Tracy, I would go back to, you know, what I mentioned earlier about how you really have to nurture and create the kind of culture that you want. And, you know, having a D&I program in and of itself, it may bring awareness, but it doesn't in and of itself change the culture. The people change the culture. And so it is one of those things where you have to continue to reinforce, continue to be diligent about identifying inequities where they occur and being committed to fixing them, right? That's the other piece. And so, you know, all of this really does, you know, blend together and creating it, but it's really about creating the culture. You know, that's really the bottom line. If we want a culture where everyone feels welcome and included, then we need to create an atmosphere where everyone feels welcome and included.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Wendy Baird, do we have anything else in the chat?
Yeah, I've been putting some things in the chat. So we want to thank you guys so much for this conversation. I mean, there's so many angles we can take with it, and then you guys covered a lot. And also I want to ask everybody just to smile because we want to take your picture on Zoom. So quick, put everything down that was in front of you. Smile. Yay. And please join us for Conscious Coffee. We're going to be talking about sustainable business, and should be very interesting. And we already have some sponsors lined up, but I want to thank Sobar and Wendy Slaughter and Elevate Realty and who did I miss? Intelligenesis. Thank you. So great to have you on board. And we can get you guys in the ranks, right? Join us and look for more. So, and reach out to any one of the C3MD leadership team. You can find us on the website, follow us on Facebook and all that stuff.
Wendy, will this recording go up on the website?
Probably.
Good.
You know, God willing and the creeks don't rise, as they say. But
Mhm.
we'll definitely have a kind of blog recap of it, and we'll try to have a link as well.
Yeah, I want to thank our panel today. You guys were awesome. Boy, this is a very important topic of conversation, and I knew you ladies would make it sing. So
And great
thank
to
you.
see some new faces. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derek, Brian, hello. Anika, you're new to me. Thank you all for joining us. I guess that wraps it up. Any final words from anyone?
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your talent.
Go vote.
Cheers.
Please vote.
Oh yeah,
Did it
I
yesterday.
did come with wine.
Woo!
I'm
Yay,
done by
yay,
now.
Anika. All right.
Okay. Well, somebody wouldn't call this wine. It's most likely juice, but it's fine.
Thanks, everybody. Have a fabulous rest of your week.
Yeah.
See ya.
Stay
at
healthy,
Nourishing
everyone.
Coffee on the
Thank
10th.
you.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.